Running your own BBS can be a lot of fun. You make it work exactly how you want it to. The whole point is that you customize it to make it all about the topic or topics that you want to share with others. It's your chance to have file shares, message bases, door games, custom mods, and killer ANSI graphics that you think is a winning combination. In the present day, a part of the reason for the resurgence in BBS usage is because the authors of most of the modern BBS software made it easy for BBSs to be set up and run over the internet, with users being able to connect often by either Telnet or SSH.
If you were an aspiring sysop and you wanted to get in and you wanted to choose a particular piece of software...
Man, you are going to get me in trouble. You're going to get me in trouble here because I'm friends with a couple guys who make. They're going to be like, Daniel, why didn't you plug my software, bro? Why didn't you plug my software? I'll name a couple. Okay, there are two different ways of looking at it. If you want the easiest, painless way to get into it, the best software out there is called Mystic. Mystic BBS makes it so easy during the install process. Make some clicks, make a couple choices, and you have a BBS. And from there, you can do a lot with customizing it. You can really go crazy. It really takes a lot of the pain out of it. That being said, there are a crap ton of Mystic boards out there. I mean, a crap ton. If you're going on BBS, it's probably Mystic. And a bunch of Synchronet boards as well. Synchronet is also a great software package, but it's really popular. So you want to be careful that you're not just making something that's a clone, you know? There's only a certain amount of callers out there. This is still a very small scene right now. We're having a resurgence, but it's still very small. So you need something unique to draw people in. So if you look like everyone else, they're not going to go to you. They're going to go to someone else. So maybe look for some software that's off the beaten path. There's a software package called Enigma 1/2 that's really cool. There's a new software package called Legacy X coming out. It is not retro at all. I mean, it is really, they're doing some newer stuff with it. So if you want to experiment on the bleeding edge and you don't care about things like keeping a traditional terminal width, etc., you want to use more colors, check out Legacy X.
My name is Ozz Nixon. I'm a software engineer. I go by the handle Squeeze, SQZ. In 2017, I decided I wanted to get back into BBSing. Since the year 2000, I had been developing my own script engine that's called Modern Pascal because I'm at heart Pascal programmer. And why not write a BBS that's fully open source, give out my compiler for free and say, here, you can pick it up, because that's how I learned how to program. My dad bought me the source to BBS, and for 3 years during high school, all I did was review printouts and tweak and tinker with the language, and eventually learned that language. So I'm trying to basically give back to the community of now. My whole goal was take away all the hard parts. You get my product, you have the mailer, you have the tosser, you have the BBS, you have sample doors. It even has an IRC chat server built into it. Just because I wanted to be able to say, if you didn't know enough about your computer to be able to tie in other programs, you don't need them. You have enough to be dangerous. And ultimately, my goal was, once Legacy X came out and it was released source code format, that people could come in and make their own mods. And I've got a couple people that have the source code, and they've asked me, is it okay if I make my own changes? Sure, that was the original intent, and that's the ultimate goal of the product. Is if it spawns 16 clones, I'm happy. So with Legacy X, again, everything is scripts and source. The whole thing was designed to, hey, you can mod any prompt in the system, because now all of a sudden certain ANSI groups were popping up saying, hey, since your BBS can do this, can you make the ANSI support this feature? Because again, a lot of the evolution of the ANSI protocol died in the mid-90s when everybody switched from BBSs over to the internet. Now we're kind of going backwards and saying, okay, Now we have JPEGs and PNGs and videos. How do we make technology that didn't even know about that support it? And that's what we've been doing with Legacy X most of 2020 is expanding the grammar so I can actually do VGA level of games, MP3 sounds, and there's even a tone package that's available for the browser that I've made legacy support, sending ANSI codes to the terminal, and the terminal handing that off to Tone, and now I can easily mimic the old original Atari games and sounds, which in today's age kind of sounds like, well, yeah, you just went forward 5 years and that's it, but it's a big step for BBSs. I can run a corporate email system through Legacy X without having to go buy Microsoft Exchange and have CAL licenses for 100 users. I can throw this free piece of software up, install a open source or a free email client, and now my employees all have email. And what did it cost my business? An hour of IT time, and that's it. So that's been part of my focus, is to come up with a bridge between old technology, new technology. Yes, we are kind of making old technology replace or be compatible with current technology, but that's one of the benefits.
If you are an Amiga user, as you should be, then you want to check out Amiga CNet. Amiga CNet has a really devoted fan base. We're constantly working on it. The maintainer K guide the guy's fantastic. He's actually the co-sysup of my board. So if you look for co-sysup, you'll see K guide right there. So I'm blessed because that guy, if it wasn't for him, there's a lot of stuff I wouldn't be able to figure out how to do. But if you have an Amiga, then I would definitely recommend CNet. I mean, it's the most feature-rich board out there.
Running a BBS is a different thing. Running a BBS is like having this other identity. What's so great about BBSs is that, and what was so unique about them, much like websites were for a little while there, is that there were a reflection of the person who ran the BBS. Like when I was a kid, you know, all those like Wares BBSs and stuff had the most killer acid and ice art and had like these custom modules and these looks, and it just was amazing. And I loved that, the customization of the environment, you know. So to run one, I obviously, like, you don't just run one unless you're thinking of something that you can offer that's different in a way. It's fun to have like a catalog of stuff that you like in your life as a thing, but it's another thing to kind of try and do something different with it. And so I was really driven to try and explore new options. And this is before I had even coded a game when I opened it up. And it's like a reflection of me. It's got a picture of Charles Bukowski, who I love, on the desktop, and all these great artists have done different art for me over the years for Bit Sunrise. And I'll get a surprise in a pack. Somebody will have done one that's in a pack, you know, and it's like really cool. And it feels like a community, and it feels like I've been there. I've had my BBS open for 7 years, and it's nice to like have the consistent callers. It's nice when we do a new game and we throw it up on the game server and just see how many people like come and try it out, you know, and get feedback on it. So it's like that. It's really fun. And the BBS is, not having a BBS would feel like I was missing something, because having it, even if I just go check on it once a week, you know, when I'm like busy, like having it just feels like it still gives me that joy it gave me when I was a kid. And it feels like I've opened my own Disneyland for people, you know?
Some software has been written from the ground up within the last 5 years. Take Enigma 1/2 BBS software, for example. It's written in Node.js, completely open source, and provides things like SSH encrypted connectivity, a web-based file and message repository, and much more, all while still giving that retro BBS look and feel.
I'm Bryan Ashby, and my handle is New Schooler. You know, at some point, a few years back, I actually stumbled upon x84, the Python kind of BBS package. And it's like, holy shit, people are doing this again. They're doing this now with modern languages, and you can connect to it over the telenet. I had no idea that any of this was even going on before I stumbled upon that package. And that just immediately, changed everything for me again. It's like, well, I'm getting right back into it. I have no choice, right, in my mind. That's what I'm going to do. That gave me also an opportunity. I was screwing around with Node.js at the time, but I didn't have anything to write. I don't know if anyone that's dabbled in programming languages, if you don't have anything to write, you're not going to go anywhere. Not just because you don't have anything to write, but you're not going to learn, right? You don't have an incentive. That instantly gave me something I wanted to do. So I just started my, so make a directory and start going, right? There's Enigma. That's how good I am at naming. Just pull the name from 20 years back and go.
So Enigma 1/2 is the name of the BBS software that you made, and obviously conceptualized in 20 years ago or something like that. And then about 2015, I think, is when you unveiled the new product on the world. Why Enigma 1/2?
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to, honestly. I think Enigma probably came out of just, the word itself, right? As a kid, I thought that was a cool word. Still do. It's the basis of the word is kind of a mystery, right? I like that. But the 1/2, I honestly have no idea. There was, at the time, you had Oblivion / you'd see Oblivion 2, right? It was always OBV/2, or you had, Iniquity at the time was also doing a little power up 2 a lot of times at the end of that. I think, this is copycat syndrome or something at the time, and just kind of stuck with me. That's kind of cool, 1/2. What does it mean? I don't know. If someone figures it out, let me know.
Yeah, you'll come down with a copyright claim at some point. So, Node.js, obviously, you had decided to write this in Node.js at some point. Now, why particularly Node.js?
I've programmed in, I don't even know how many languages for professionally and, my own projects. And at the time, Node was something that I was starting to do for a work project also, but obviously very unrelated, and it wasn't anything fun right at the time to me. But really, I just wanted something where I could get into it and really learn it, and actually enjoy myself, right? Like I love programming, and I like learning new languages, and that one was new. There's probably, if I started today again, would I do it in Node? I have no idea. There's other languages that are, the current green pastures, I guess.
What parts of Enigma, the net outcome to the user is that they see something similar to every other BBS, but like you said, there's that special something, a little secret sauce that you've got in there. If you were a greasy car salesman, what would be the selling techniques that you'd what would you say this particular BBS software? Why would you use it?
I'm definitely not a good salesman, but I think for Enigma, some of my goals have been kind of a customization. A lot of boards or software, I should say, have concepts that seem kind of natural, a main menu, right, or a file section. Enigma doesn't actually have any of that. There's a default kind of a flow that comes prepackaged to get you going, but there's nothing at all set in stone, right? You can make your board operate more like a Amiga style, conference system, or you can make it work more kind of like WWIV, that kind of system where things are more combined, or you can go kind of the more route where I still tend to lean, even though it supports it, is, kind of that classic Oblivion style, or, maybe a Renegade kind of look, I guess. So that's one thing. I think, you know, I've been very probably overboard on how customized you can make everything. That definitely is a drawback for a lot of people, and they get in there to look at it and they give up. You know, this is too much, because it's not, certainly not tailored for an out of the box, you know, quick and easy setup. It takes a little time, but so that's definitely something that I like. A few people have kind of pushed it, I think, and kind of got it, I guess, in my mind, where, yeah, I can make this do whatever I want.
A couple of extra things that Enigma 1/2 does. I know there's a couple of things that it does pretty much out of the box. Would you like to elaborate on those?
I don't know if they're necessarily, you know, well, they're not all unique, right? But out of the box, you get SSH support, you get WebSocket support. There's goodies like a Gopher support. You know, if that you can't see a Gopher server, there is a built-in web server, and you know, all these things are pluggable, which I think is a good thing. So those also fall into the modding, right? You can easily go in and make your Gopher server how you want. You can make the web server, for example, a lot of people want to serve their messages through a web interface. That is absolutely possible in Enigma. There's a built-in achievement system, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, why not gamify BBSing a little bit, give people some achievement points. That's always something I enjoyed in gaming. You know, so there's things like that.
Great. So what's next then for Enigma 1/2?
You know, I think people have been wanting a kind of more classic waiting for caller screen. So I've got that kind of half-baked that I need to get back to. There's things that just bug me as a programmer that, you know, especially that I was learning Node at the time. Like I need to go back and just change the way I did this kind of stuff. And one of those, I guess, it does impact users, which is, you know, there's, if you want to call with an actual DOS box, you know, maybe an old terminal program, a lot of those don't have the support that modern terminals do, that I relied on a couple spots. So I need to rewrite some things and make some, you know, do some polish work. I've pondered about building in a torrent server. I think that would be fun. You know, and tie that in, right? So it's not kind of like there's a built-in web, you can download files through the web server, and they still count against your, you know, your upload download ratio, things like that. You know, just there's a lot of open tickets. People request all kinds of things, so it's not like I'm not, you know, I have things to do. I do try to hit up the stuff that people are actually asking for.
So it's not getting boring then.
Right.
Great. So you probably the first BBS that was running Enigma 1/2, I'm assuming, is your own. There's just little parts of Finesse which are kind of, I guess, part of Enigma 1/2 anyway, but you know, just the login matrix screen and stuff like that, it's kind of got a little bit of a different feel. It's not the same as a stock Mystic. It's something in of its own, and you can see that straight away from the login screen. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe one of the things you're talking about is kind of like the navigation style, where you can tab between, you know, form elements, which is kind of more of a modern kind of take. You know, I never even would have thought of form elements in, you know, 92 or whatever it was. So some of that's there, and I see people log in, you know, for example, giving when you go to feedback to the op, a lot of people will type /s, you know, at the end of their message, and then that'll get saved, because that's what you need to do instead is hit escape, and that brings up the menu. I don't know if any other boards that kind of operate that way, and it just that is yet another thing that you can change, though. If you don't like that style, that's just the default in the Enigma package, and you can make it light bar driven or, key driven. You could make the /s save. That's fine too. But
that really is the beauty of it. But I really do like the layout of its sort of default way. It is different. It's I guess you could say it's modern without being modern. So I think the one last thing I've got on my list for Enigma 1/2 is WebSockets. Can you tell the uneducated what that's all about?
Yeah. So if you're familiar with Telnet is definitely the big player, right? If you go Telnet BBS Guide or any of those others, you can, in your browser, right from there, connect to a board. You do it right from your browser window. But the way that works is your browser wants to speak HTTP, and your bulletin board software generally wants to speak Telnet if it's even new enough to do that, right? So the bridge between that's kind of, I think was probably invented by Telnet is we'll just use WebSockets. And what that is a way for your browser to make an HTTP request to a server and then kind of upgrade that request to just a kind of a vanilla socket, bidirectional socket that now, you can talk whatever you please. And in our case, Telnet works great. The beauty of that, in a way, is that browsers won't talk to, over WebSockets, won't talk to endpoints non-securely. So you're kind of forced into using TLS, which is, I think, a great thing, right? Like connect to someone's board and you don't have the opportunity for things to snoop on your traffic.
Then there's cutting-edge BBS software that runs on retro equipment. Take Image 3.0, for example.
Okay, I'm Larry Hedman, and I've been involved in image BBS software since the late 80s, and I put away the software until 2014. I brought it back out again. And by that time, there had been a lot of developments in the hardware that goes along with the Commodore 64. And I decided to invest in some of that and put my BBS back online. But it was a whole different story because now we're using Telnet over the internet instead of dial-up modems like we did back in the 80s and 90s. But I've also got a lot of explorers, new people that are new to BBSs. They've never called them before. And the one thing that I find is that the Wi-Fi modem has made a big change in Commodore, in the Commodore world. There's a lot of people from Europe and other countries outside of the U.S. that call into my boards, and I'm getting new users all the time that are first-time callers into a BBS, and they're curious as to what it is. And a lot of them still have a Commodore 64. I understand that there's some new versions being made, like the Ultimate 64 that's being built over in Europe right now.
Well, I would say first things first, if you're thinking about starting your own BBS, do it. Just straight up do it. Whatever software of BBSs you as a user might visit, if some are more Mystic based, some may be custom, some may be Synchronet. Those Mystic and Synchronet seem to be two of the big dominant ones. Find a piece of software that works for you, read its manuals, understand, get involved with their community, and most of them are always willing to help. I've run into very few people who are just like, figure it out on your own, which can happen. That's inevitable with anything. But as a general rule, especially to plug Synchronet, the developer digital man is incredibly helpful to anyone asking for any help.
I'm Rob Swindell. I am the author of Synchronet BBS software. I also contribute to some other BBS related tools like SyncTerm, and occasionally other projects help out with like DOSBox or anything really that I can. I think I recently made a patch to BinkD, like multi-mail, some other stuff like that. Anywhere I can help really, as far as pushing BBS stuff forward and making sure that it runs on modern systems, and so just general BBS guy, I guess.
General BBS guy. That's quite modest of you, I would say. Synchronet has been a very large piece, a very large, important part
of the software of bulletin boards for a very long time. When did it start?
I think it started in late 91 or 92. Like, it got the name in 92. Really initially it was just my own BBS for my own, use. And then started getting the idea that, oh, maybe some other people might want to run it. And then started, giving it to friends. And then other people were offering me money. And then it was like, maybe I could sell it. So it was a business for a few years. Became my sole source of income, employed a few other people. That pretty much died off around 1995. And then in, I think it was 96, 97, I open sourced it. And pretty much kind of gave up development for a couple of years there. Didn't even run a BBS from like 97 to 99. And then around 99 is when I got the idea, hey, this really just could be a modern internet suite, just use Telnet. I wasn't really aware of RLogin and SSH, and didn't really have aspirations for like a web server, although that eventually came about. Yeah, so it kind of got really revitalized with version 3 around 2000. Open source really helped. I got a lot of contributions for like Unix support, and then other protocols like SSH and the web server, and just a lot of JavaScript contributions, because it's mostly C and C++, but I also embed the Mozilla JavaScript engine in there. I did that in the early 2000s, and that led to a lot of third-party contributions as well.
And then in terms of numbers, I mean, if you go onto, say, the Telnet BBS guide, you look there, and by far and away, the two that have the most entries in there is Synchronet and Mystic. Why do you think that Synchronet has risen above so many other platforms which have been there since very early days? Is it just active development, or is it something else, you think?
It's probably active development, because in the 90s we were certainly not the majority in any category, which I tried to be, desired to be, but we were kind of late to the game. As far as like picking up steam, it was really towards the end of the BBS, especially the commercial BBS software industry. So yeah, I think starting in the 2000s and having something that was modern, internet focused, 32-bit, ran native on initially Windows only, but then certainly a lot of Unix-like platforms. I think that really helped, and at that same time, there were many BBS packages that people knew about that just had completely, been given up.
And it's interesting to see now, all of a sudden in the last few years, I think the likes of Enigma 1/2 came out around 5 years ago. And so all of a sudden, this seems to be, it's not just Enigma, that's just an example, but there is a sort of a resurgence of BBS server software. Do you see that as a good thing to have this competition in amongst the mids now?
Oh, absolutely. Like I very much appreciate all the efforts of Mystic and the author Guru, and any other players, right? There's a number of platforms that have kind of come up in popularity at times. LEBBS for a while there, and whether it's Citadel or any other platform that has something that's unique and different that can be an inspiration is great. And a lot of times I hear about it, secondhand. People will come and say, hey, I really like Synchronet, but I missed this feature that, I had in this other BBS software I used to run. Could you do that? And, that's great. I love to get those kinds of requests or suggestions. And then a lot of times that'll inspire me to go check out that other BBS software and get some other ideas. So, I'm definitely, stealing from the best, if you will, or, being inspired by these other programs. And without them, there'd be a lot less inspiration and a lot less, growth.
So how much time do you think you spend in a given month on enhancements, bug fixes, and the usual whole bunch of other things that goes with maintaining active BBS software?
Boy, I'd hate to know. There's logs of commits and stuff, so it wouldn't be too hard to figure out, and you could look based on the size of the commits. Wow, but you asked about how much time. I don't know. It's probably a second, at least part-time job, but it's fun. It's a labor of love for sure.
It's fantastic to hear that
it's so vibrant, and also the fact that you, as the primary author of Synchronet software, is just so still active in amongst it all. I mean, that's the big fear, I guess, of somebody who maybe wants to take on some BBS software now and build their own BBS. You know, which piece of software is going to be around in 5 years if you want to run your BBS. You know, how you know you're still going to get support. But I mean, you've been there, and obviously you took a little hiatus there from like the late 90s and so forth. But it's good to see that you've consistently kept a big part in it. And obviously you must have a full-time job as well, doing something else. Are you a software engineer to trade? Is that what you do?
I do, yeah. I've been professional software developer since the 90s, and manage a team of software and firmware engineers. And yeah, it's it's crossover from both. Like the skills that I developed there help with Synchronet and vice versa. Yeah, there's definitely cross-pollination between my professional and my hobby
and work. Since it is a hobby, since the BBS Synchronet stuff is all a hobby, does it ever feel then that you're taking work home with you?
No, it doesn't. It's something that I'm very eager to look at. I don't like regret or like dread supporting Synchronet or looking into problems or writing new features or whatever it is I'm doing. It's very rewarding. Even if there's nobody that seems to be involved at that moment. The IRC channel's dead and there's no new messages on DevNet or whatever. It's like, oh, good, I get to focus on my to-do list, and it's pretty long. And, I just kind of pick off a feature and start working on that, or maybe some bug that, has been long standing, but I didn't have time to get to. There's always something to look into and improve upon. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like, it doesn't feel like work at all to me. As a result of the COVID-19 virus, I think that was a resurgent there where people had more free time to look into their hobbies that maybe they've been putting off, and they're all stuck at home. So hey, I'll dig out that Raspberry Pi or boot up that old Commodore 64 and see if I can if I can still get on a BBS with this thing. So that's another feature like I put in a few years ago is PETSCII support, because I got a sysop asking me, hey, how can these Commodore users get on to my Synchronet BBS and, will it be usable? And I'm like, not really, but it should be, so that inspired me to work on PETSCII support for, several months anyway. It doesn't get a lot of use, but it's kind of cool that you can connect and get a good experience still with those old Commodore machines.
If I was a aspiring sysop and I wanted to choose a bit of software to host my BBS with, what would be the reasons you'd say to choose Synchronet over another one?
Well, it's kind of its whole, like it's like a whole Unix server suite, like in one. So particularly, I think you see this on Windows when you install it. There's a graphical control panel, I call it, but kind of like a dashboard. And each server log is like a separate window. So you see all the activity like going on in parallel. It's got a mail server and FTP server, and then a bunch of JavaScript services, I call them, but that's where like your news server and web sockets and a bunch of stuff. But it's all happening simultaneously right there, and it's one program. It's not like a big dependency thing. You don't have to install MySQL or a bunch of other things first. Usually, anyway, it's very simple to get installed and up and running. So. I think that's kind of, the outcome of being a 25-year plus project, is that all the complaints of, difficulty in use have been addressed, and it's pretty turnkey. If you're a Unix person, you have a Linux BSD background, I think you'll like the way it integrates with, your Unix system. And it's all demonized and uses syslog and a lot of typical Unix like control and monitoring mechanisms. So it's kind of a familiar subsystem, if you like, for Unix people as well. And compared to others, I don't know, it's I think it's more monolithic, for better or worse. You install it and there it is. You don't have to go find a FidoNet mailer or tosser. The Door games are a piece of cake to install. We actually have like this huge database of third-party install scripts for all these common Door games. So it's like you just kind of copy it in a directory and then you run this automated thing and it sets it up for you automatically for Synchronet and just makes it, as easy as possible, really, to get a new door game installed. So, I think it's just that focus on making things as easy as possible for the sysop and, of course, the community behind it. Myself and the other Synchronet support givers are very eager and available to help people solve problems. So I think that's a huge asset and a reason to run Synchronet.
So there you are, the state of BBS software in 2021, which is clearly alive and well. Still to come in Back to the BBS is an episode on the thriving art scene. There's also further episodes on other scenes, including the demo scene, the music tracker scene, as well as the underground scene. That's all we have for this episode. If you've enjoyed the series so far, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if not, let me know why in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next part of Back to the BBS.